Hello, and welcome to step 2 of the framework, narrative mode. Another really important one because understanding how you naturally want to express yourself is what makes sharing feel really authentic and also sustainable for you. So, what is narrative mode? In summary, it's about your intent, and this is what types of stories you want to express when sharing in public. So, after identifying your motivation, what I saw was the next barrier that a lot of people face is knowing how to express themselves publicly. Because there's so many ways to do this. And when I was working in the framework, I wanted to try and help put a little bit of a container, around all the different themes that you can choose from. And mode works quite well for this. Now, creative expression, it varies quite dramatically across different people. So some people want to share as they figure things out. Others prefer to express, they have a clear opinion or a lens. And some people are more comfortable actually not just telling, but showing how they live or work. And the challenge is that without understanding your natural expression style, you might force yourself into sharing approaches that are just the first things that you've seen online, and they might feel uncomfortable and inauthentic. So the solution here is to choose your narrative mode that feels most natural, and that's going to make sharing feel more genuine and also sustainable, okay, because we want to make this get a pattern of consistency. Because if that doesn't feel right to you, you just simply you won't do it. So once again, there's 3 narrative mode options in the framework, and we will look at the first right now, which is in progress. So this mode is going to be suitable for you if you are comfortable with transparency. So you don't mind sharing challenges or setbacks, mistakes, pivots you need to make. You probably are someone who enjoy the process as much as the outcomes, so you quite like the learning of it all, and you don't mind being vulnerable in public. So you don't mind the vulnerability of saying, I don't have all the answers, I'm starting something new, here's my journey. Now, in practice, that might look like you sharing a learning process as it happens. It might mean that you document kind of the ups and downs of building something, and you've been really transparent about experiments you're running and results, and you want to take people along for the journey. So you don't just want to show final results. Actually, that's only a small part of it. It's all about the in-between. And this mode works kind of particularly well for people in spaces and fields where continuous learning is essential. And that's about sharing that genuine side of your industry rather than being super polished and waiting for perfection, which is often what you get in these kind of polished insights reports or annual reviews of the year. This is a very different mode of storytelling. We'll look at the second option, which is called point of view, and this is about sharing insight and opinions. Now, this is going to be for you, most suitable for you if you have, let's say, established perspectives or opinions that you want to share. So that's why you're doing this. You want to share your thoughts. You want to express insight or analysis that maybe shapes how people think. You might enjoy commentating on industry issues or professional practices, and you probably want to kind of influence conversations and perhaps move thinking forward in your field. Maybe you're slightly frustrated with how things are going and you'd like to put a different perspective out there. And that might look like you sharing frameworks and insights you've developed. It might mean that you are regularly commentating on industry trends and issues, and you're expressing your perspective on how maybe you think things should be done, maybe teaching others through your analysis and opinions. And that can be quite powerful because you're positioning yourself as someone who not only understands your field, but you have thoughtful perspectives, more authentic, that help others see things differently, and you're bringing yourself to that conversation. You're actually shaping conversations rather than just participating in them. And then we go to the third and final option, which is the lifestyle mode. This one, again, is quite different from the others, and this is about showing how you work. Now, I'll explain this because a few people asked questions about it while we were testing the framework, and In summary, this is for you if you prefer demonstrating rather than explaining. So what I mean by that is you maybe want to show your values through how you work and live, and you're maybe more comfortable sharing glimpses of a professional life, and you probably enjoy curating and creating quite maybe aesthetic or aspirational content. In practice, what that might look like is sharing behind the scenes glimpses of maybe your workspace, your work environment. It might mean you showing your routines and your rituals or your working methods and tools, and maybe curating content that reflects your aesthetic. Maybe you're quite familiar or quite in tune with your aesthetic, and maybe you want to demonstrate your values again through how you create in your field. I was also asked during the testing of this framework if this approach is professional enough. Essentially, it maybe seemed a little bit like influencer type content. But I would say the answer very much is yes, because people in professional fields don't expect this. And please don't underestimate it, because this approach can be really, really engaging. If you think about it, people are naturally curious about the minutiae and the details of how others work and live. I suppose that's why people are obsessed with reality shows, And when you share this authentically, you can build a really personal connection with your audience. Okay, let's bring mode to life a little bit, and I'm going to talk you through the example of Dr. Anne-Laure Le Cunff, and she used the in progress example mode. So she was studying neuroscience, and she began sharing little snippets from her neuroscience studies. So she started off sharing small tweets, but then very quickly that moved into writing small articles on a blog that she would then, and she set up an email list, and she would then email it out to people who were interested in hearing about this. And she did this because she wasn't an expert. She'd never studied neuroscience before. She was way at the beginning of her master's. She wasn't an expert. She hadn't finished her research, but she wanted to document and share her learning process as it happened. She refers to this as the generation effect, which is when you transform what you're learning into something personalised to you, you remember it better. So she started off with actually a personal goal. She thought, if I do this, I'll actually help myself study, and then as an added benefit, I'll share it out there for others who maybe want to learn. And the way she did this was very user-friendly. So because you're doing short articles, but you're also documenting complex research that people are interested in, that began to build an audience over time. And she didn't have her PhD at this point. She was not a recognised expert at all. She was just sharing her journey. And that authentic sharing of her learning process eventually led to her launching Nest Labs, which is a mindfulness community. There's, I think it's 3,000 students in that community. She also recently published a book called Tiny Experiments, and she's also recently completed a PhD in neuroscience at King's College London, where her public practice actually helped her with research grants, and now she's continuing in the research labs there. And that's a perfect example of in-progress mode in action, because Anne-Laure shared her genuine learning journey. She made complex things accessible to people, and then was really, really consistent in sharing this and doing this over time. And that built an engaged audience that were interested actually in her process and actually her process of discovery. So she wasn't trying to be a finished expert, she was just showing her journey of becoming one. So let's look at which mode fits you right now. I'm going to walk you through the decision process. Again, this is on the left-hand side of your framework PDF, but I've also got a screenshot here for you. So again, before we start, this is about choosing based on how you want to express yourself right now. So this is totally flexible. A lot of people actually do change their mode of expression, but if you choose at the beginning, again, like I said, it creates this kind of container, so it will help you then actually choose what you end up, the themes that you end up using to create your content and your narratives. So framework starts with the question, do you want to focus on sharing your journey and or learning process? Now think about that for a moment. If your answer is yes, you feel quite drawn to that, you want to share your process, then the in-progress mode is likely going to be most suitable for you. It's going to feel comfortable, so you want to share as you build, learn or explore, not just when you're finished. If you're not sure about that, if it doesn't feel quite right to you, then move to the second question where you'll be asked, do you want to focus on sharing ideas and perspectives? Quite interested in that. If you've got quite a solid point of view, then move to point of view mode. If you, and I want to note here as well, it doesn't mean that you believe you're the finished article and you're an expert, but it's more that it's actually thoughts and opinions and insights around a topic you want to share, and that's going to form the basis of your narrative, your mode essentially. So that's what point of view is. If you're still not sure, you move to a third question, which is, do you prefer to share through demonstrating how you live or work rather than explaining your thoughts about it? If that feels more in tune to you, and like we just described a couple of minutes ago around lifestyle mode, you're probably going to should start here. And this is about you wanting to show how you live or work, not just talking about it. If you're still not sure, and sometimes if you've never shared in public before, or you've never really expressed yourself creatively or anything, this might feel a little bit uncertain. What I would say is just start by picking the mode that inspires or excites you the most. So as I've been going through each of the options, which one got your brain thinking about different ideas, which one interested you the most, go with that. Again, you don't need to be an expert, but just go with that mode and then use it as a guide to explore the grid. If it doesn't feel like it's fitting, you can try a different one. The grid is really flexible. Now, before we move to step 3, we'll take a moment to reflect. So, which mode resonated most strongly? And how do you prefer to express yourself when sharing? Write this down, and this is going to combine with your motivation to act as that container and guide you through your theme selection. So you now know your why, and you now know your how, your types. These 2 elements are going to create a foundation for the framework, and this is going to let you discover specific narrative themes, which is what we're going to move on to next. See you there.